I'm going to call order the village board meeting at the Lisbon Village Hall on Wednesday, June 12th, 2024 at 6:31 PM. Roll call, please.
President Osterman,
Here.
trustee Plotecker. Here. Trustee Moonen,
Here.
attorney Macy,
Here.
administrator Nicholas. Here. And clerk Capazzo Catch to record the minutes. Trustees Quinn and Beal are absent and excused.
Thank you. We'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence, please. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Item 3 is comments from citizens present. If you would, please step up to the microphone, state your name and address. Does anyone have any comments tonight?
Hello, board. My name is Jim P. Volvarchek. I am running for state assembly. So I'm just here. I wanted to introduce myself to the board. All right, we are, as you may be aware, the legislative maps were recently redrawn in Madison. We all are now in the new 98th Assembly District. That district runs from the city of Hartford and includes Richfield, Erin, Sussex, Merton, and Lisbon. And so I live in the town of Erin. I've been there for 14 years. I was a police officer for 20 years, small business owner. I have 3 kids I raised in the town of Erin. They're currently one graduated from Hartford Union High School, and I have 2 more in the one graduated and 2 more in the high school right now. I have been endorsed by Sheriff Severson, Washington County Sheriff Marty Schulteis, the couple DAs, including Eric Toney and Mark Benson, and a couple of the other legislators from the area. I just wanted to, introduce myself to you guys. I am learning more about things that the state legislature can do for Lisbon now and in the future. You guys have any questions for me?
Can't really have that
Yeah,
right now,
okay.
so.
Is it okay if I leave some of my literature and a couple business cards for you guys to reach out if you guys want to talk or?
Sure,
keep in
that's fine.
contact? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, does anyone else wish to speak? No, anyone on Zoom?
If anyone on Zoom wishes to speak, please use the raise hand function. No hands raised on Zoom.
All right, item 4 is the consent agenda. Items listed under the consent agenda are considered in one motion unless a village board member requests that an item be removed for separate consideration. We have the May 8th, 2024 village board minutes, the Civic Systems purchase agreement for utility billing software. We have approval of a preliminary plat for October Fields with plan commission conditions. We have approval of a waiver to chapter 12, section 7.03, parent A regarding cul-de-sac length for October Fields. Adopting resolution 2024-04 to approve the 2023 CMAR report. Adopting resolution 2024-05 to update election reporting units due to redistricting. Does anyone have anything they want removed for separate consideration, or is there a motion on the consent agenda?
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda, including all plan commission recommendations and conditions where applicable.
Motion made by Becky. Is there a second?
Second.
By Noonan. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 3-0. Item 5, accounts payable. Actually, we're not gonna have enough for item A, so. Thank you. Thank you. Item B is authorizing the payment of the remaining bills dated 5/23 for $282,081.50 and 6/5 for $105,478.39.
Top line expenses are $87,581.28 for $75,150.67 for $153,554.50 and $1,115.14 $12,955.53. Other one, our top five expenses is severe building inspection, for $27,725 and 80 cents. Goes security account for $3,000, home infrastructure for $13,684 and 20 cents. Reliance fire apparatus for $13,023 and 62 cents. $59 and 12 cents. That's pretty good.
Questions or comments, or is there a motion on the check register?
I'll make a motion to approve as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Becky, any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carries 3-0. Item C, authorizing the payment of utility district bills dated 5/31 for $74,876.10.
Top five expenses group is $1,675. The audit for they came back, their work from the audit that we paid to the utility and $10,048. And then the village subject for $33,495. That's for your.
Any questions on this one, or is there a motion?
I'll make a motion. That we approve the bills as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any final discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carries 3-0. Item 6, announcements and correspondence. We have a special board meeting on Tuesday, the 18th at 6:30 PM at the Richard Young Fire Station. We'll have a Public Works and Utility Committee meeting on Wednesday, the 19th at 5 PM at the Village Hall. A Planning Commission meeting on Wednesday, the 26th at 6:30 at the Richard Young Station. And then a Parks Committee meeting on July 10th at 5 PM at the Village Hall. And then the next Village Board meeting will be July 10th at 6:30 PM here at the Village Hall. And anyone else have any other announcements or correspondence?
Saturday, the community fest,
Saturday is our community fest. What are the times on that?
11 to 4,
11 to 4.
Village Park. Or, we'll call it, Lisbon Village Park,
Community Park over on Lake 5.
there too.
All right, anyone else? All right, item 7, administrator report.
Microsoft, Ken is at the end of life as of 2025. Fixes. I requested one click to investigate which of the village computers are still not using 11, and which ones of our computers can be adapted to be using Microsoft. Some are we may have aged out and would not be able to accommodate Microsoft. So I'm trying to get that all put together. Fractal and should seal bids will return, and it'll be put on the Public Works and Utility Committee for recommendation. Next week, complete our update of the residency map for second spenders. I continue working on updating those, gathering the current light pole report from the energies, and we'll start an audit next week on that. Received a letter from the county that in 2025, there will be no recycling dividends due to the fire in the facility. I'm working on an agreement with the county on future road work when the TID is filled out. Premier's open house is June 20th from 11 to 3, and the ribbon cutting is June 25th at 10 AM. Invitation to bid for the baseball diamond went out and is due back July 1st, and we'll go on the next park meeting agenda. We received $1,000 in restitution from Liz Kraus. Lisbon's balance due is still just around $4,000. Received a settlement affidavit from Amanda Hickman concerning sewer hookup. Sent a letter to Ms. Hickman with a 5-year schedule of treatments. That would be added to a yearly tax fund. And also pass that on to my emailed the Grundy Pump residents that the item was not to be placed on the agenda today in tonight's meeting. With that, I would email them again when it is placed on the agenda. Nick received his new Lisbon credit card and Joe's was canceled and credit. Nick is set up with the same, limit as Joe had. I completed the NPPS fire department certification, ESPU, SID, the NPI, and Medicare changes from the county village. That certification was due by June 15th. We just received the letter. I started that. Working with the federal portals. We Energies now has our project of the lights on Richard Burling Lee's Lane. The cost to TID is going to be just under $27,000. Property owner on Hillcrest that requested an extension in April is now in compliance, and compliance letter was sent out by Brian. Work on state TID annual report, he filed all personal property reports, TID, and municipal official contact and maintenance of effort reports, which are all July 1st. Set up the annual joint review board for the TID and completed the TID questionnaire and sent it with all attachments back to properly. So our clerk department coordinated final paperwork for the residence board, finalized updates, shared online calendaring system, track the return of biannual tax exempt property reports, continue processing all info alcohol, tobacco and bartenders license renewal. And the clerk and the deputy clerk attended the Department of Revenue webinar with the new alcohol and tobacco. The highway department, brush pickup, they use 1,426 gallons of fuel. There were 618 loads of brush and took 29 days. We received the new roadside mower, which was approved, and they'll be discussing with the committee need for strolls and miscellaneous additions. All staff attended more training and completed the excavator and roller repairs. DPW director worked on brush pickup, with his weed commissioner responsibilities, checking out properties and writing letters, invoices, payroll, credit card report, work permits, received new pickup truck, and Parks Department summer help kids have started. Sydney, Grady, and Gabriel are the names. Grass mowing, weed whacking, and weed filling it's been done regularly, and they're prepping baseball fields on. The fire had full fire calls from 46 medicals, 15 ALS intercept, 0 facility transports, 10 vehicle accidents. We received mutual aid a few times, and we gave mutual aid 20 times. The sheriff had 93 traffic stops, 43 citations, 51 verbal warnings, 15 alarms. There were 15 911 payments, 14 roll being checks, and 32 follow-up minutes.
All right, any questions for Kathy? Thank you, Kathy. All right, item 8, unfinished business. We have a discussion necessary action regarding the 2024 annual committee member appointments. We have the list in front of us for the Plan Commission, Public Works, Public Parks Committee, and the Fire Commission, and the Board of Zoning Appeals. Does anyone have any questions on any of the members? Or is there a motion on them? I guess I would make the motion to approve the appointments to the Lisbon boards, commissions, and committees for 2024. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Mark. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 3-0. Right, item 9, new business. A, discussion and necessary action regarding policy changes in chapter 12 land division and development ordinance, including final plat approval process.
So we've been reviewing the land division chapter for rewrite as we go through the portion of the code. Keeping in mind the developer's bill of rights, which has been in effect since 2018, was when it's municipal powers and regulates development and recovery costs. Attorney Macy is here to review the pros and cons of our current code and also policy.
Thank you, Madam Administrator. And thank you, board members, for allowing me to be here tonight. It's always a privilege to come in and visit with you. Look forward to it. we have an issue that's, most of my clients, not all, are struggling. And I know it's gonna sound funny, but if you go back 50 years, this wasn't an issue. Because 50 years ago, when someone developed a subdivision, they would come in and put all the roads in, all the stormwater wasn't even required, believe it or not, 50 years ago, that started. Well, about 50 years ago, it started in the 60s. And, but all the improvements would be put in, that everything would be done, and then they would come in and ask for a final plat to be signed and filed. It was not a big deal. The road specs weren't as complicated as they are today, and the costs weren't what they are today. And so over the years, over the last 50 years, and I know that it's 50 years because I've been doing it 45 and it predates me. And so over these years, changes have occurred. Courtesies have been made to the developer to say, if you do A, B, C, and D, and you don't do D, E, and F, we'll sign the final plat. Why is signing the final plat the drawing the line in the sand? Is because that's when they can sell lots. They can enter into contracts to sell lots, but they can actually not sell because the parcel doesn't exist. And so they can't sell it as a lot until they could sell it on meets and bounds, but that would violate the codes. So they can't really sell anything and recoup any of their expenses until the final plat is filed. So that's sort of the line in the sand as what's important to them is when they can get that final plat filed. And so I told you that in the past, all the improvements would be in the past, the improvements were mainly just the two lifts of the roads. Okay, and I don't think anybody here can answer the question of whether they put both lifts on at the same time or what they did way back then. But maybe somebody can answer that question. But I'm willing to bet they did. And so it wasn't this wait over one winter that we currently the practice is and things like that. So what developed is that they would, as I said, you would enter into a developer's agreement, basically a contract to say that if you give us the financial security and you agree to all of this and all your plans have been approved, you can get your final plat filed. But you can't build any houses. For the most part, the developer's agreement says you can't build any houses until the binder course is on in front of those houses. Okay, and that's sort of been the practice for quite a number of years. Now, well, I'll get to that. So what has changed? Well, first, the Developer's Bill of Rights was adopted recently. And the Developer's Bill of Rights says that once they have substantial completion in your community, for the most part, is going to be the binder course and the stormwater improvements. You don't have a lot of sewer and water improvements. So the things you look to is, and then they only have to give you financial security for 14 months. And if you made them wait a year, you're down to 2 months. And if you drop the ball, you lose the financial security. And if they've left town, like we've had happen, you have nothing. And why the legislature did this to your taxpayers is beyond me. And maybe a few of them can come here and explain it to you at some time. I think some of them don't quite understand what they did to you. But it puts an incredible burden on your staff to make sure we don't lose that financial security. And it makes us write very detailed developers agreements to make sure that your taxpayers are protected. So a number of my clients, as I told you, have been stepping back and saying, all right, what should we do? One of them recently, and I'm not going to out them necessarily, they basically said, they said to me at a similar meeting to this, how are the taxpayers the most protected? I said, you don't sign the final plat till everything's done. They said, that's what we want. Change our code, change our developers agreement. They're not getting the final plat. We're protecting the taxpayers. We're not putting the taxpayers at risk in any shape, manner, or form. They're going to do everything like they did 50 years ago. Okay, that's not going to play well with the developers. I mean, let's not kid ourselves.
Well, they paid to have the lobbied for the Bill of Rights. So
They did. They did. And so now we went to, ironically, this came up in a couple of senses. One is because a lot of my communities are dealing with it. And I told Kathy that, but more, we found at least 4 sections in your code that deals with it. 2 of which are very specific. One says all improvements must be installed, or at a minimum, the roadways are paved with the first lift of asphalt and all roadside ditches are in final grade in the topsoil and seeded. Another one, section 8 says, before the final plat of a subdivision will be approved, that will provide and dedicate all required facilities improvements must be installed or constructed. So we have two laws. The other two are a little, it says, they might be able to do it if they have the developers agreement and the guarantees in place. There's, as I said, at least 4 sections that your administrator was able to find dealing with this topic when we were going through it. And she said, that's it. We got to bring this, this policy in to the village board and have the village board decide which way they want to go. So I'd be remiss not to talk to you about what your options are. If you understand the history and you understand your code, those are the first 2 things I wanted to touch on very quickly. So what are your options? You can do it as soon as the developer's agreement and financial security are in place. That's in many respects the current practice. We haven't had a lot of subdivisions, as you know, of recent. There's more, in line. We've talked about a lot of them. And I think, and maybe the administrator knows, I think that's what the current developers agreement, when I started here, allowed for. That if you got your developers agreement and your financial security, this was all pre-developers bill of rights, of course. We would file your final plat. You could sell lots, but you couldn't get building permits until sometimes for a model home, but we won't go into those nuances. But no building permits until the binder course is in. The next is as soon as the binder course is in place, they could file it. That's another option. As soon as the binder and surface course are in place, or as soon as all improvements are accepted. Those, and then there's hybrids of those 4. A couple of, we were told by your engineer today that I did not know this because it's not commonplace that I knew of in Waukesha County, but I think many of his clients are in Washington County. And he said that the large, he doesn't recommend it necessarily to I didn't want to be full disclosure, that they're putting both courses on at the same time. And that solves some problems because then they don't have to wait so long. You've got your improvements in place. The vast amount of money that could be incurred has been taken care of. And so the exposure to the taxpayers is less if they allow both courses to go on at the same time. Now, where's the downside? The downside is that if there are soft spots and they show up and both courses are on and they got to cut the surface course, that makes cracks and that causes problems going forward. The other thing is, of course, as they build the homes, many people like to wait with the surface course until some of the homes are built because they do damage to the surface course. And my argument is always, yeah, they could have a lot empty for 10 years though, and they could come in and damage the surface course. So yeah, you're playing a little bit of, hedging that some of them will get it done while the binder, only the binder course is on, and then your surface course will still look pretty and still serve the purpose. So it's a complicated issue. It's not cut and dried. There's no right or wrong answer. I think your staff's job is to protect the taxpayers and to make sure that, you at least understand the risk of doing it prior to all of the improvements on. We try to safeguard those risks. We put in the developer's agreement that if they're not done within 10 months, we get to pull the financial security. Keep in mind the financial security under the new law also might be just a bond, which we have never recommended, because if the bonding company just doesn't willing to write you a check, you have to sue the bonding company for the money, and then you pay me, and you say, Macy, how did you let us take a bond when you get paid to go and get the money for the bond? And now I get to blame the developer's bill of rights. I would never recommend you take a bond, but the legislature has told you you have to take a bond, and you can only have it for 14 months. That's the dilemma we're in. So we're balancing all of these issues, how to keep a nice road, how to protect the taxpayers, how to be fair to the developers. We're not trying to mess with anybody. We know they have to, make money, and the longer they hold without filing the final plat, the less money they make. So I don't know where to go from there. I've tried to make it very succinct. There's like 3 different things playing against each other, and I wanted to lay them all out quickly.
We had this discussion probably 15 years ago about this. And the reason why things went the way they were was we allowed, we do the current process so they can start selling lots right away before everything's complete, in hopes that a lot of the lots were sold. And then the building would happen within that next year, in between having the binder course down and final put down. So it actually worked pretty well, because yeah, you'd have a few left, but 80% of these subdivisions were usually done. And then you put the final course down and everything was good. But now, if we have to change this process, that's obviously gonna have to be thought. But
Yeah, I think you summarized it exactly. There wasn't as much risk And you also could enter into contracts and the developers would live up to those contracts. The developers agreement could, require things. Now the courts have told us, and we believe this is what the case said, that you can't contract, like the law says you can require a 1-year guarantee. We always required a 2-year guarantee in many communities. Now you can't, even though your code says that. You can't enforce your code if we know the court says that. You can't enforce your code if the court is in conflict with the developer's Bill of Rights. And they also seem to say, but they didn't explicitly say, you can't contract, different than the law. And I don't understand that because you're giving something that you don't have to give, the filing of the final plat. So why can't you ask for something in exchange for that? And the courts have not been reticent to allow you to.
Is the league or anybody trying to get a hold of some of the legislatures to tell them, hey, you screwed up, this is why you screwed up, and we think you should fix this?
Possibly, but they weren't successful in beating the lobbyists the first time, and I don't, so my answer
It's
to
just to
you.
fix some of it. I mean, they're not gonna fix all of it, because there's too many
Well,
interests involved.
I just think they've thrown up their hands and said that this has, been bought and paid for by the lobbyists. I hate to be so negative, but what about the CU law? It's
Hence the
horrible.
reason why people hate
It's-
politicians.
It's the absolute one of the poorest written laws in the world, the CU law. It's only this big, and how they can muck up a law that's only this long is beyond me, but they did. Any person could read it and know that it doesn't make a lot of sense. It's not consistent, and they know it. If you ask the legislators point blank, did you screw up by making CUs a right instead of a privilege? And making them quasi-judicial instead of legislative? They say absolutely, we had no idea.
But we're not gonna fix it.
But we're not gonna fix it.
Can't stop them all.
Pretty amazing. I had two things that I thought of. Can we make them sign a separate agreement and require a surety aside from the developer's agreement?
I would have to say no. Our office is taking the position that although the court didn't explicitly say that, the answer is no.
Also too, I thought of, could we put into place a road assessment policy post developers agreement for all new developments? That would be it would be an individual assessment on the properties in that subdivision as a way to either enforce it or not.
Well, I'm not sure I quite understand the question. The communities, and we have one right now,
Yes.
that there was an 8-lot subdivision, 7 lots were developed, the developer didn't finish it. The municipality admits they sort of let it drag out too long. Fortunately, they had a great relationship with their bank. The bank called them and said, per the letter of credit, it said you have to give 90 days of it, not more than 120. They gave the notice and we got the $20,000. But it sat so long, it's now $40,000 to $45,000 worth of work. And so, yes, we could special assess those 8 lots to pay for that difference. But the board so far is of a mind not to do it. So yes, you can have a special assessment for the gap if you got stuck, the taxpayers got stuck by a developer who failed to finish it and live up to their commitment. Yes, you could do a special assessment. I don't know that that was exactly your question.
Yeah, no.
Okay, so we did talk today about 2 other tools that you might be able to use. And one would be that if you allowed them to put both lifts on at the same time, and then there was damage, there was a soft spot and we had to cut it out. We know that that's going to be additional cost to you and your taxpayers going forward because of that cut. You never want to cut until you have to cut because that causes, freeze and thaw and we'd say that there's a penalty of $10,000 or something. If we got to go in because, during the first year and you cut, you got to pay the monies that we're going to spend over the next, X years to maintain that cut. Okay. And the other thing, of course, and we've always had this right, and that is if we can prove which contractor messed up our surface course, we can go against them and have a violation of the law and make them pay to fix the road. But that includes the cut again. And so we'd have, because most of the time when their track messes up the road, you have to do a cut in order to make it look good.
How do you track who did that though? I mean, we have
The
it now where
proof
people
problem.
are driving through subdivisions and we never know, just because we didn't witness it, we never know who actually did it.
Right.
Like the
It's a proof
contract was
problem.
going through subdivisions they're not supposed to be going through, and
But this is the obvious one where they break the road or they break the edge of the road. I mean, sometimes we know who's, who's building at that point and it's right in front of that house, but
That get quite litigious with.
yes.
With
Pain in the butt. Yeah, absolutely. It's not a recommendation. I'm being very blunt. But it's not my recommendation to have me make money to try to prove somebody and then they're just gonna continue to deny it. And so it's not our, but we have to come back with tools, to try to deal with the problems. We have had instances where the manure spreader dragged dug a trench through the road and we've gone back against them. I don't want to pick on farmers. It doesn't only happen to manure spreaders, but it seems like I've had 2 or 3 of those where they went down the road and they not only left the manure, they left the cows in the road.
So we're doing, what is the board saying on requiring all the improvements to be done before the final plat? That's kind of what one of our code, in our code. We have a dollar. Which would be approved by the.
I'm not with that.
Yeah, I mean, that could be substantial delay for everybody, staff.
I mean, honestly, I'm not gonna lie, I like the way we do it now, where they're allowed to sell these lots and then they're sold before the improvements are done, but then they start building these houses before the final course is on. And that was done intentionally to save taxpayers money. Until the legislature decided to screw it all up.
What do you think about, if we were to do a developers agreement that said, binder course is placed, is very substantial. Let's start at 14 months, that then the surface course must be placed with. Well,
I mean, it almost have to be month 12 because we're in Wisconsin, you start in April. You can't do it in January, February,
but no farther out than.
well, it has to be completed by the 12th month.
What's the clock start for,
Once
The-
it's substantial, it's considered substantial.
I know, is that upon, is that completion of work? Is that inspection? Is that? What triggers that?
I think it's placement of the, first, what's the binder? I can look it up real quick.
Yeah, I was just thinking we could delay inspection.
It's very specifically, spelled
Binder
out.
course and the storm water. Once they finish those 2 things, it would be substantial.
But are we allowed to decide what substantial is, like,
No.
what a definition?
Very specific definition.
They have. a definition.
Yep, well, that'd be an easy fix.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
if you tell us that you want to keep the status quo, the only tool we have is to put that. If they don't have it done, and I say 10 months to give you 4 months to get the money. And if they don't have it done, they're in violation of the developer's agreement, and that's not, that you can say, if if they're ever in violation of the developer's agreement, we can pull the financial security. Now, it might be a bond, so. Once, we can require a letter of credit until substantial completion, and then if they want the letter of credit back, we have to give it to them, and then they can give the bond. Just so you know, the law doesn't talk about, I don't think.
We have to start the action before the 14th month, not completed, right?
Yeah, we have to have the money, because they can walk into the bank and take the money away.
So what if there's court action going on? Like, we started at month 12, but the courts are taking 4 months to do it.
Yeah, I don't force,
Full letter of credit.
But then I was saying with the bond though, that we have to allow bonds.
I don't know. I don't think the legislature thought through what happened if the bonding company just didn't pay the bond. What happens?
We'll figure.
The bond might expire after the 14 months and you could be in the middle of it, but I guess when we plead the case, we'd say, Judge, we want you to order the bonding company to continue the bond until this is resolved.
And I think this is only gonna be in like April, May style first course going down,
Yeah,
because you can't do that at 10 months then. It's just. You won't even find a company that's gonna do it. Clients aren't even running.
Well, are you firm about not wanting one winter season? That's the other issue. So if you say they can get the on filing of a developer's agreement, and we'll say letter of credit or cash, they can get the final plat file. That's what I hear you saying. That's your current practice. You could still say, we don't need to have an entire winter season. See, I make the argument that our road specs have become so good and our inspections should be so good that it should be a rarity. And I would really, is anybody here who knows, have we ever had any serious problem, you know, with the soft spots having to be repaired?
I think it's more still the stormwater thing. I mean, we're very good at it now, but I can tell you 2 roads where it's not really good that we just had done.
The stormwater?
Yeah.
Well, the stormwater is a whole different issue. We can, you know, stormwater, you fix the stormwater and you don't have to worry about the cracks in the road and cutting the road and all the things to fix the soft spot in the road. That's the hell of it, is that when you got a soft spot, it really
Well,
is a
that's-
forever problem.
And you don't know that always until the first thaw. I mean, they can say it's good, but you don't inspect every inch.
So the question is, you know, do you want to wait a winter season, or you want to wait, if it's April, can they put them on in November? I don't know.
Who does the inspections?
Pardon?
Does the inspections.
Nick, what do you know about roads? Can I put you on the spot? You have to come up to the mic though. You picked the wrong meeting to be at.
Question about the roads for winter, whether.
So we have a subdivision that we put a first course down and then we go out there, the engineer inspects. I don't know how much you've been, if you haven't been involved with money, it's okay, you can say it.
No, because we had Lindale Farms, that Pheasant View and all that.
Yeah.
That had a bunch of soft spots in it. Did they come from, those are big storm drains that go there, was that just settling that happened there? They didn't really tell you, you know, they didn't dig down and find it out, but
Just knew.
they, you know, it was all cracked out and everything, so that was one spot that did have. Soft spots before the top coat, so
What was the repair like?
patched it out, I mean. That's
Dig
all they
down.
did. I mean, I didn't see him patch it, or anything, but I know, I believe Joe contacted the developer, talked to. Mitch or someone about it, and because I know plowing, we noticed it, so. In that aspect, that's the only subdivision I know that's had issues. But I don't think for. In my honest opinion, for asphalt, I don't think asphalt really, asphalt's flexible compared to concrete. So winter for settling, I think concrete's a little more brittle, it's gonna pop more. But I think asphalt has flex in it, you know, so. I don't know if winter's really gonna make a huge difference in whether top coat or not, you know.
As
So,
far as like the soft spots.
yeah,
Just
soft
put
spots,
the
I
winter.
figured that they're gonna pop up. I don't think winter's really gonna make a huge difference, you know,
Okay.
just because I figure. They beat it down with the rollers and everything, I mean, I don't think winter's gonna make a huge
And that feeds
difference,
into what John was saying about the specs. of it.
so. I mean, if it was concrete. I mean, you can't really do anything with concrete, but you definitely want stuff to settle for concrete, because there's no flex in it, there's nothing, it just will crack and it's done, you know, but. Asphalt, I think it also depends on your base, how much asphalt you put down, what type of mix you use. You know, because I think that's a whole different. Whole different thing for the base and everything, so. I mean. Again, depends what type of asphalt you're doing, is it like overlays, because that stuff cracks all the time, whether. Flex it or not.
This is all new construction.
Yeah, so I mean, like I said, they prep everything good and gets compacted, there shouldn't be. Cracking whether.
We have another issue, and as long as we have an expert up there, can I touch on the other issue? Don't keep everything in your head, but the snow plowing was another issue. And if they don't ramp them properly, the catch basins, and if you have curb and gutter and they don't ramp them properly, we have problems snow plowing. And so there's an issue the second issue we're going to be asking you to talk about is, when are you going to start snow plowing? And that issue, to a certain extent, goes away if they do both lifts before the winter season. We don't have the problem of wrecking our backs, hitting, you know, the catch basin that isn't ramped properly out while snow plowing. And so that's what I said, there's pros and cons, and the snow plowing issue brings up one of the issues, and I know you have thoughts on that.
Yeah, so we see it a lot, especially with curb and gutter, because if you just do binder, it's swaled in, so the water has to fill up to get in the catch basin. When you plow, it's all water you're hitting, so if you get freezing and thawing, I mean, if there is a crack in the binder somewhere along the curb line, that water's sitting in there, you're just creating yourself an issue. Just gonna keep working its way through there, so it can hurt you just leaving a binder if there is a crack, that it's in the binder along the curb line. Cause those seams aren't, just it's concrete and asphalt, they ramp it up to there and it's not like it's great, so. We can't see if there's really cracks when there's snow and, snow on there, so if the binder's cracking, you already have water going in there, you're creating an issue, and then you're gonna pave it over top of it, and you're creating an issue from the bottom. You'll never catch it.
We, our, current practice is that if the binder is there, our public works does plow it, even though it's not our road. It's not a Lisbon road, it's still a developer owns the road. And the concern is, it's happened in other locations that, this snowplow catches on something and breaks it or chips it. And then when they go to put their developer comes in, and they've got all these repairs because our snowplow hit their edges. So, it's a liability that, that you need to make a policy on. If it's only a binder for us, we don't own the road, the developer still does. Does our DPW go out and do find, plowing binders? I mean, we may have homes that living on, people living on that road. We charge back the developer, we have the developer sign something, so we're not liable for. Or do we just require the developer and they turn the road over, put the final course and turn it over?
What other communities been doing?
Absolutely. Genesee, I'm told, if they did, I haven't asked them recently, they used to start plowing immediately upon the first, and they send them a bill. Keep track of what the cost to plow that subdivision, and they sent them a bill. And Mugwanago, years ago, decided the first building permit goes out, we're gonna plow and we're paying for it. And we did get sued once for damaging the curb and gutters. And the insurance company paid. I was not happy, but I know that obviously it was irritating. So some don't plow at all until technically, once the final plat, we own the land. We just don't own the improvements per the developer's agreement until we accept it, until there's full acceptance.
So that's a tough one. You get liabilities and all ends, and you get people living in those homes paying taxes. It's hard to say, yeah, well, we're not helping you this year, we'll help you next year.
So that's the question. If you're dead set about not doing the surface course, and waiting until after the winter, then we have to deal with the concern that do we or don't we do find a course. If you decide that you want to move forward and before the end of the year, before October, that they have to put on their second course. They don't have to put the first and the second course on immediately, but by October, before the snow flies, we have the surface course is on, and then it's kind of. I think that's why we wrapped them together tonight, because it all depends on what you think about the surface course when that. So I asked you before about waiting to sign a final plan. You said no. Another question for you. What do you think about doing all that? Binder and.
What do you think, Becky?
Well, are the communities that do both at the same time?
Are there?
Are there?
I was shocked because I only have, I think only one. Richfield has made a policy decision recently to do that. Okay, But your engineer told us today at our staff meeting that, did he say the majority of the ones that he works for are all allowing both lists? And that was news to me. I told him, no, that's news to me. We'll share that tonight, because that was not the norm in Waukesha County. Now, I don't know all his communities. I know he had Richfield for a while.
Also did not say he was recommending at a percent. That's, if you looked at his community, it's 100%. Arguing both ways, and they're not really over.
Well, what do they do then? They put on the binder and then when do they they do them both at the same time? Or they let it sit?
Some do both at the same time, but there's nothing to say between that they can't leave it sit either.
They don't typically do it the same day.
No, they would let it sit for, I'm not gonna know the amount of days, but usually let it sit for a week or something, just so it
And
can
then
cool, because
put the
if they're
other
laying
one on.
4 inches, summer, it's gonna take a long time for the asphalt to cool down, so. When they bring trucks on there, they don't want to start rutting it up when they start hauling asphalt in, so. They usually wait a little bit before they do the top coat right away, so. So,
I was thinking, they would wait until like winter, like the cold winter, to put it in.
I don't know. the answer.
I don't know either. I
Just
guess
trying to
I
narrow
don't,
it down first.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards just get it done right away. But my biggest concern is the damage to the road during the construction phase. It's like,
That's why we
What-
did what we did.
what recourse do we have? I get the whole snow plowing, public works part of it. We're removing that liability from, hitting a ramp that should have been there, and now we're paying a claim on that, but my concern would be, what happens if a builder comes onto the roadway to unload material and then causes damage, or a hot summer day and you have a heavy truck sitting on the road and now it,
It's got 6 tire marks.
puts
yeah,
traction.
then they
against-
drop trailers on there, the jets go in, example, we had just recently the Pheasant View of the new Lindale. We parked the excavator out there for brush pickup because it's all the one side of town. The excavator where the grapple sits, that top coat's a year old. Yet the following morning, we went out there, it sunk in that much. So I also don't know the type of asphalt mixes we use, what the use for the top coat. I know there's different grades, qualities that aren't as flexible, they're more rigid, and some are more flexible because it prevents cracking, but you also get stuff like that happens, so. I don't know what specs of asphalt we use, but it could just be a softer asphalt blend that we've been using, so. That's a year later, and it's sunk right in, so.
I mean,
Not even that hot.
I can think,
No, it was cold, so, and they drop trailers, they track dozers off, there's. It's gonna get damaged, it's likely, but, you guys don't know.
I've seen-
How do you police it? I
I've
don't
seen a
know.
water truck for a swimming pool sit on the road during the hot summer and a year-old road put 6 traction divots in it. So,
We didn't
But-
have that before to go after that person. That would be very close.
We catch it.
right, and the only way that was solved was a neighbor reported it and there was ring video of it. But otherwise, yeah, I mean,
Because technically they weren't supposed to be there anyway.
well, they were allowed to, they just went. But, yeah, I mean, I guess what protection do we have on that exposure for the top course getting damaged during construction? I mean, is it,
Well, that would be immaterial of when, because that could happen 10 years or 5 years. It's all, what recourse is, you always have recourse to go against anybody who damages your property. You just gotta prove it. So the recourse is the same regardless of when you sign the final plat, regardless of what the developer's agreement, regardless of what the financial security, the developer always says, I didn't do it, the contractor did. I said, yeah, but we haven't taken the roads yet. You're responsible, until we take the roads. And that's one reason they went and made this 14-month rule, that we couldn't have them hanging out there long.
What about their, What about their building? Will you be able to increase the building bond to kind of?
Absolutely. What's your building bond? What's your building bond now?
Right.
I think we have communities that went to $5,000 just for that reason.
And they get it back if you can, that's.
Yeah,
the
but-
thing about the building bond.
For repairs, that's the deck chair off the Titanic. That's. I mean. Good. Good intention, but can we go higher than that? What's,
I don't know.
Oh, well, you know,
I mean,
I have
5,000.
one community that the maximum bond is $100,000, and for every house that's goes with your building permit, you gotta pay minimum of 5 and a maximum of $100,000 bond.
Might be a little high.
You can guess where you can guess where that might be. Yes, so can you go higher? Yes, you can go. And their building permit fees are substantially higher too, and that's a part of, you know, protecting all that kind of stuff.
There's a lot of stuff to weigh back and forth on this. I mean, it's,
But-
Are you do it the way we're doing it, you protecting yourself, but you're also potentially doing more damage with snow plowing.
yeah, I mean, we're not looking to make a determination tonight, right?
We don't have, we just are gonna, we'll bring it back again, because we're gonna have to have an answer. These questions, at some point, so we can get checked.
Yeah.
And we do have an outstanding, DA, so for October fields right now.
But they wouldn't be under, they're already under the
So-
code as it's written now.
So we don't have the DA, we couldn't rewrite the DA to follow whatever. procedure.
I mean, we just gotta make, right now, we're just gonna make sure it's all done before the 14th month.
We could continue doing what we're doing, but require the second course to be done before the 14 months.
Yeah.
Everybody right now, all of our developers are using that. We do have the ability to pull level set. Think we pretty much just like, give them one week, today was expired. There's a lot on this.
What do you wanna do? Wanna think about this for another meeting? Yeah, it's a pretty big deal. I think we need to know as far as like the different bond amounts. I mean, 2,500, 5,000. I mean, is that, 2,500 is not even really a.
Yeah, I mean, my thing on that is, so in that community he was talking about, that's $100,000 on top of a large chunk of change people are already putting up.
Yeah,
Can they get a policy to satisfy that, or does it have to be active cash?
Well, there's a letter of credit, that they get from the bank.
The individuals?
Okay.
I don't know that any of our aren't cash bond. The $100,000. I don't think most people pay for a letter of credit for 100. I think they just, and there's a lot of interest, there's a lot of interest to be earned on them.
not this guy.
Little small.
All right,
community
so
like-
let's go back with what possible bond amounts.
Right. Say, have some discussions. I mean, we have a lot of people we can talk to too about asphalt and all that. I mean, you seem pretty knowledgeable on it and just.
Yeah, I would say direct staff to speak to engineering and get a pros and cons for us to consider.
Get some expert opinion on what's the least exposure for the village.
Let's see, final.
I mean, least exposure, but yet still reason. I mean, as far as the roads, I'm more concerned with at that point.
Just, projected.
But even then, I mean, saying that's the least exposure really isn't though, because if we don't give them the final plat till everything's done, now they're building the houses after that and they're damaging the road. So that's exposure.
Same thing.
Yeah. And you're waiting to get,
That's where-
and you're not recouping tax base until the houses are done. So that could push that off too. So that's exposure too.
We'll bring back, and so really what we're concentrating on is, the 14 months. And when the best time to get, a list of service and what could be done to make the service either more durable. Right, or what we could do to cover the cost of this. Yeah.
And then the plowing end, as far as if there's some kind of agreement we can have, I think that's what you were just saying, but yeah. Okay.
Do we have any thoughts on snow plowing? I mean, did we resolve that
That was
or?
that's part of it.
That all the things.
I mean, we can talk to whomever you want, but we talked to Mitch today and Mitch said he's concerned, especially when Phil is involved. He's still gonna recommend that you go over the winter months. I think that's what he told us was his recommendation, but he said, I have to admit that that's not what my clients are doing.
Well, maybe we need to Mitch on Zoom. I don't
Yeah, I
know.
would say, why don't we talk to Mitch, and also too, what ends up to increase our construction standards. For filling.
Are we doing what's proper, right?
Or is there a standard?
Well, this turned into a whole lot more work.
Yeah, because I mean, you could fill with a lot of different material.
Right.
Slurry, gravel. So that's true.
And we do have that really spelled out, and we have, like, they put in a new sewer connection.
Yeah. And some people only require stone.
All right.
Direction good. Becky, you good with that direction?
Yep.
Mark, you're good?
Yes.
All right. Thank you, Nick. Item 9B, discussion necessary action regarding assessor RFP.
Right, so we're gonna be looking at our assessors contract expires at the end of this year. So I had a couple questions for you on what you'd like to do. Currently, our contract is with Broda, but Catalyst purchased Broda. So it would be Catalyst. Do you want to continue with who we are dealing with right now, Catalyst? Or do you want to go out and get some bids?
I'd be in favor of formal bids.
I mean, it's only responsible thing to do.
Mike is like gone on. Too.
Yeah.
I mean, like, board review, Mike's gone, there's no, so the history's gone.
So in the past, we've had our contracts for 5-year contracts. Should we continue that?
Depends on the. It's we get better bids at 5 years, I would be opposed. You go with that, Becky?
Yeah, I think you get better bids if you have a longer contract.
Right, so currently we're at an assessed value of 80.23. We're supposed to stay real close to a 10% of full value mark. So my question to you is, so we did it in 2020, we were at 80.74, we moved in 21, we're gonna go down, so we did the rebound in 21, brought us to 96%. And then we've just been, going down really by little. We expect 2024 to be about in the high to mid to high 70s. So we are looking at a reval for 2025.
How many years we have? Once we're under 10, 5,
It's supposed to have no more than one,
What? One more.
under 10%.
5-year clock.
And then you get a warning and things like that.
I mean, could we?
And I'm gonna make my commercial, real plug, real quick. You should do it every year, like Sussex does, and Conomowoc Lake does. and
So it's just a
it's
quarter every
cheaper.
year or every,
Pardon?
do they do a quarter every year or every?
It's all pursuant to the contract. They do a full, but they do an analysis of like a fifth. They do an analysis of the SWIFT and then they computer generate how it affects all the properties. So everybody gets the notice every year. And, you know, I think Sussex has been very happy. You know, people complain, but at least they don't get these huge numbers. You know, some people did. And they complain, but I have to make the pitch, you know, Ottawa did it, Sussex did it. You know, not a lot of places do it, but when you're looking at hundreds or $200,000 every time you do it. And you have a lesser amount, you know, every year.
We've been doing market reassessments pretty much every year. We never do a full.
You know, we never do a lot. And we have been doing markets. It's just really-
Like 30, 40 grand. On that.
Because about them. We had acceptance. So the question would be, do we go out? Do you want to do, like John said, we could do, yearly,
Market assessment.
Market assessments, that would keep it very, you know, any increases would be very low increases. Or we could do like one, this first year and then 1 year to create a contract, so that you're not spacing it out by. And then the bump in BSI, that's a possibility. So,
Do you have to write 2 different RFPs then?
I mean, if we do, if we're gonna go out for 2 different ideas, I would
Right.
ask you which one you want us to go out and do increments every year, or you want us to do an analysis once. Definitely, we're gonna wanna do a market analysis in front of time. Because
Right.
we're bringing somebody new on, and it's always good to have somebody review what was done.
I think you gotta do one right off the bat, and then maybe have an option to do one. Not that it's for certain, but maybe an option in year 3.
Well, then.
Cause it depends what,
And you can always do a revale without saying it.
right,
I just add another contract for it, and it would be more money if you're gonna do the market analysis. That's. I was just thinking, would it make sense to, so you didn't have to discuss having a market analysis within this contract, you went first, you went third, and then that would get you, because then the next contract.
nobody would do an option to do one, like, you say, we're gonna do this because, and then lock in a price for year 3. Because if you're, for some reason, if things change and all of a sudden you're at 96% still, and it's not gonna be, but let's say it was in year 3, you wouldn't do one,
Yeah, I mean, you could have a trigger in there.
right? Like in year 3, if it's more than 10%, it automatically triggers a market reeval.
It's much more complicated than that. You gotta go like 3 or 4 years in a row, and then you get a warning year, and then you get a makeup year, and
For when
so
you
it's like
require.
5 years before the state steps in and does it for you.
Yeah,
I mean-
I think we were just talking about
Okay.
what would be our administrative trigger.
Yeah, just ours. Right.
Okay.
You guys, y'all good with that?
I guess I have to hear the pros and cons a little bit deeper on it, but I could see like if Sussex is doing one every year, and it makes the shock every change less.
You take everybody off every year.
Right.
Every 3 years.
Yeah. I mean, there's the masses that are gonna be mad aren't gonna understand the difference between a tax bill and an assessment either, so.
I can tell you at the gossip table at breakfast in the morning, they're not happy about every year, but they're never, and he knows.
But no one showed up at board review. All their questions were answered. They understood the numbers and they accepted them. And they've had 2 large ones. They've had 2 in a row that were, for some people, fairly substantial, but it's a hot market. In Sussex here.
As evidence with how much it's changed. And
Right. That's what I was just gonna say. I'd like to see prior to our last one, I thought it was, didn't we wait 7 before the last one?
we
I
went
did not.
I thought it was 7.
long, back in 2007, 8, 9, we went a long time without doing one.
But that isn't necessarily fair.
No, but I
The
mean,
mere
it was-
fact that you're not required to do it doesn't mean that everybody's assessed at the right level, because the sales
They might
can
think
affect and Or they just think they are. As long as it's less than what they think they can sell it for, they're happy.
Right, so, and reval in 25, and then an option, option for reval whenever we are.
I mean, you wanna
But,
make it,
but isn't it always gonna take 2 years to realize that though?
If we do our first one, and if you take a look at, we did ours in 21, our reevaluation, that was at, 96, and in 22, we were already at 87.
No, I'm saying if we put an administrative trigger in there to do one, I think it'd take 2 years to figure that out.
But you're gonna get what we did last year, and they know that now it's that 10%.
And they'll be able to immediately start that though.
if things
Next-
continue how
the
they are,
next-
they're
the
gonna be,
next,
in year
cycle.
2, it's gonna be past 10%,
Right.
in year 3, you trigger the. It's a recommendation, but I mean, getting a price to do it.
Yeah, well, I guess I wouldn't,
Set a reval price.
I would be open to seeing what it costs to do it every year.
I'm not against talking about it.
I'm not in favor of every year.
And then I did talk to some other assessing companies, and they actually have, an option, they would write in, possible option for the software that they have that works between the assessor and the building inspector. And, what that does is when the building inspector does, permits and everything are not all paper, they're now electronic, the building inspector approves things, and then the assessor has the same document. So right now what happens is, somebody comes in, they bring in the paper, they give it to Brian goes, does the whole thing, then he brings the packet and everything. Brings that here, and then somebody from the county gets to come to pick up all the packets from the property. Or,
This would make it digital.
so everything would be digital.
Who scans it?
So it's the developer puts it in the system, and then it goes through and it's sent to the building inspector. The inspector does his portion of everything. He approves it once it's all done. You have occupancy, then send something to us that says it has occupancy, when something to.
So we're handling no paper at all.
We do not. We have just essentially read that we do commercial right now, still pay for the next. Just.
I guess that's more of a staff thing than it is
Yeah.
a us thing.
My end too is, since they're both contracted services, what are we gonna pay for?
Well, so the one company I said I talked to that has, that uses the software, said that their clients that use the software actually, they bid less for the process. Because they don't have to hand enter everything the building inspector does. So they have less team, so the process of the assessment was down. Then we can further process.
I mean. Would we have to rewrite Brian's contract to make him use this then, or?
I spoke with Brian about it, he was intrigued. He didn't say no, I'm gonna stay with paper, because I think he'll be able to move that forward. Once we're not moving the paper.
Is this just for new houses or is this for
Remodel.
all permits and everything?
So like, let's say somebody's gonna do a remodel on their house, they're gonna be the ones required to submit it digitally?
I'm not sure, I don't know enough about it to say it for remodel. I know that when it's linked somehow with the state, so when you do a new house build, you have to go through the state. So then you have everything electronic, but you're filing in the state. And so this software is just another step.
I guess I'd be curious about like. Somebody at their house is pulling a building permit to do something, I mean, who's gotta put everything in, I mean. Still want to make it real cumbersome, like if they bring in paper and we look at it and say, no, you gotta send it digitally, I'd leave you pretty ticked.
Yeah.
Yeah, use metal. Yeah, there's still a lot of old school people out there.
They do that. We're going to.
I just want to accommodate I mean, the big developers obviously are gonna do it, maybe that saves time, but I mean, I don't want to tell somebody that comes in to bring paper, no, we're not accepting that.
So I just thought I'd put that in as an option. If they have the software, if it's something that they do, what their assessment costs would be, what their quote would be if we use their software.
I don't get an option personally, like you good with that?
Yeah.
Mark?
Yes.
So then the final question I have, because I have to set up a time. Do you want to interview the assessor candidates or just bring in the contracts? For computers?
I think I'd like to see the contracts on the side. Everybody good with that, or you wanna
I don't want to interview.
introduce Rebecca?
I don't want to interview
Mark?
assessors.
No
Have
interviews.
the option. If we wanna bring someone in, we can bring them to talk, but otherwise just bring contracts.
Yeah,
I don't necessarily need to talk to them, I just need to see the writing.
Right.
On paper.
That's what I needed. So we'll
just back on number 4, it looks like, there's a plethora of villages, townships, and cities that are already using the e-permitting.
Yeah.
I mean, there's probably 100 of them on here. To the state.
That'd be good. We have the option.
Yeah.
All right, I don't really need a motion, I just wanted to get your feedback before I bring it back.
No motion needed. 9C, discussion and reaction regarding updates to various sections of the village code concerning nicotine and delivery.
Okay, so, we've been, we reviewed the, chapter 5 nuisance ordinance, last month, the month before, and we held off on making any changes in the code. Dealing with, maybe, since then, we had a officer write a ticket to, in high school for vaping, and then, when attorney, went through to, before it got to court, reviewed it, we didn't have anything in the code that allowed us to.
Be prosecuted.
So, our attorney, Mr. Schultz and Captain Cannon, they asked us to consider the following, that, chapter 45, 25 should be modified to include nicotine delivery devices. And that would, let's include, page chapter 254 should be adopted, and then ordinance 5 to 10 should also be modified, including nicotine delivery devices, and then should remove persons underage. So the question that I wanted for you today is, you made a decision a month or two ago, is that you didn't want to deal with vapes. Now that we've come to this, consider this, would you consider us making these changes and then doing that, in ordinance? To make these changes?
It sounds like we're gonna need to. What do we do with chew? And,
It's tobacco.
It's
That's tobacco.
all right,
I think ours right now says something about being late. The delivery times,
is there nicotine in chew? Or it's covered on the tobacco end, they just don't necessarily name nicotine.
Is it okay for us to?
Everybody good
Yeah,
with
the
that?
only thing I just want to make sure is the 41.27 should remove persons under 18. That does, just so it doesn't remove them from tobacco as well. Because that's still a state law.
Good with that, Becky?
Yep.
Mark? Okay.
All right.
A lot of no motions tonight.
Gathering information.
Item D, discussion necessary action to approve the July 1st, 24 6/30/25 alcohol license renewals, combination Class B fermented malt beverage and intoxicating liquor licenses for Megan E.W. Nolting for Songbird Hills Golf Club, West 259 North 8700 State Road 164. Michael Patrick Lehman for Ironwood Golf Course, West 20 North 6166 Marine Drive. Robert Michael McDonald for Fairways of Woodside Golf Course, West 235 North 8518 Woodside Road. Do you have to take these individually or can take them all in one? I just keep reading. Class B fermented malt beverage licenses for Robert Peter Schluga for Sherwood Forest Bowman and Stinkers at North 61 West 25600 Walnut Road. Combination Class A fermented malt beverage and intoxicating liquor license for, oh boy,
Shayna.
yeah, this Beiersdorf.
Yep.
For Quick Trip 973 at North 67 West 27619 Silver Spring Drive. For Nicholas Eric Lane for Quick Trip 1108 West 260 North 9579 State Road 164. Zachary Charles Hutchins for Quick Trip 1299 at West 221 North 6314 Leeds Lane. For Keish Conti Cal.
Yep.
For
Pretty City.
Ready City County Liquor, North 95 West 25901 County Highway Q. In a Class A fermented malt beverage and Class A cider only license. For Amin Hamdan for Quarry Mart Mobile, North 52 West 23206 Lisbon Road. Is there a motion to approve these, or if anyone would like anything removed for separate consideration?
I'll make a motion to approve. As presented in the staff report A, B, and C and D, which includes all of them just read.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Becky, any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 3-0. Item 10 is a closed session pursuant to Wisconsin statutes 1925, parent 1, parent C, for the purpose of considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercise responsibility, more specifically regarding administrator and interim DPW director. Is there a motion to adjourn the closed session?
I'll make a motion to adjourn into closed session.
Moved by Mark Moore,
I'll
a second,
second it.
second by Becky. Roll call, please. Vote.
Trustee Moonen,
Aye.
trustee Plotecker. Aye. President Osterman.
Aye. Want to close session then at 7:48.
Okay, anyone participating on Zoom, I will be placing you into a waiting room. Once the closed session is finished and they move back into open session, we will readmit you to the meeting.
I assume I'm excused.
Thank you.